Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Steelers have limped into the playoffs and now they face Lamar Jackson. So how can they do it? Also, the Big Ten is well represented in the college football playoff semifinal. And do the Commanders have the edge over the Buccaneers? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It's an all AFC wild card Saturday this weekend. Steelers-Ravens, the marquee matchup of the day. Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers joins us. And Chris, we've seen this one twice, in fact, this season. And this is a team, a rivalry that we know the pads are going to pop. This is going to be a physical matchup. So tell us why the Steelers have a better chance on Saturday than they did the last time these two teams played.
Well, if they do, it's going to come down to protecting the football, which is something they didn't do in that game. The Steelers defense let up some scores in that game. They were uncharacteristically not good at covering tight ends. As Lamar Jackson pointed out after that game, when Mark Andrews caught a touchdown in that game, that was the first time in 7 years that he had scored a touchdown against the Steelers. And he was like, let's celebrate that.
Whoa.
The Steelers had been doing very well, but there was that stretch there against the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, where the defense just wasn't on its A game the way it had been for most of the season. I think they got back to that against the Bengals. And so I think that this defense can play at a high level to make the Steelers competitive in this game. But to me, the difference maker is going to be, can the offense finally show up? While the Ravens have scored 30 points in 4 straight games, the Steelers haven't scored 20 points in 4 straight games. Hence why one team's on a 4-game win streak, why one team's on a 4-game losing streak. But it's been things within the Steelers' control that have not gone their way. Russell Wilson has needed to see the field better. George Pickens needs to catch very catchable passes. They need it. Pat Freiermuth needs to catch a catchable pass in the middle part of the field. These are things the Steelers can do against the Ravens and get things going. And if they can get those things going, I think they can win in one of those close, low 20s scoring type of games. But if you look on FanDuel right now, the Ravens are 9.5-point favorites because you look at the Steelers offense and the Ravens offense, and one is high scoring. The other one hasn't been high scoring for over a month.
Yeah, that seems like that's going to be the problem for the Steelers, right? Can they score enough to keep this game, not just, can they win it, but keep it, in a close enough margin? Because guess what? When Mike Tomlin plays a close game, we know what happens. They win a lot of those close games. This is what Mike Tomlin does. And this is a Steelers team that in Lamar Jackson history, right? Like if you listen to a Steelers fan, they'll tell you like they tend to play well against Lamar Jackson. But I look at that offense. You mentioned George Pickens. He was also gone for a couple of games there in the middle part of that run where they started having some issues. How much of, hey, let's just get him back, get him in rhythm, do you think could help them this weekend when it's like, okay, now he's gotten his legs back. They're back trying to catch a rhythm here. They can create some explosives, which is what they're going to have to do to beat Baltimore.
No, I think it's I think that George Pickens plays a big role in this. He wasn't in that last game.
Right.
He had a couple, his 2 games against the Ravens before that were big. He had 89 yards the first time they played. He had the game-winning touchdown the time he played them before that. George Pickens has been a big factor for the Steelers a lot this year, but he wasn't a big factor in the Bengals. In fact, he was probably one of the biggest detractors in that game. They need him to lock in. They need him to be able to do that. And one thing I talked about with Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens was how Brandon Stevens, he's been a solid cornerback for the Ravens, but the things that he struggled with is turning his head around in time. And George Pickens is known for those quick hands late when the ball's up there, and that's what Russell Wilson likes to throw to him: jump balls, moon balls, get him up there in those situations where if he can catch Brandon Stevens in a tough spot, he can win those 50-50 balls more often and be the big play boom for the Steelers. But I also think something's going to come down to, Peter, something that the Ravens kind of talked about on Hard Knocks that got put out there was that the idea of Russell Wilson, his whole offense is layups and 3-pointers. They talked about he has no mid-range game. And since that clip has been played, the Steelers have not won a football game. And I think that people have kind of known this, but I also think Russell Wilson hasn't taken full advantage of those opportunities. I think a big part of this is going to be Russell Wilson being the quarterback the Steelers signed him to be. They didn't sign him to be the superstar, but they did sign him to say, like, hey, when defenses are taking these things away, this offense is going to go the other way. Zig while other people zag, and that's what he hasn't done for the last 4 games. But I think for most of his time in Pittsburgh, for the 2 months before that, he was doing that. That's what he did very well. Even in the game where he didn't score a touchdown against the Ravens in their win, he was able to get the Steelers to move the ball in that game. They need to be better in the red zone. They need to move the ball. They need to protect the football. They do those things. This will be a close game that goes down to the wire. And when you know Steelers-Ravens, when it does that, who knows which direction it goes.
You can stay up to date on the Pittsburgh Steelers by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Steelers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports today. Coming up, the Big Ten is set for a big 2 days. Before we get to that, the NFL has a plan in place for the Rams playoff game. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Looking at the wild card round, Jaden Daniels enters the NFL and took the Commanders to the playoffs. On the other side of the field, the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, FanDuel has the Bucs, 3-point favorites. Daniels rushing over-under, set at 48.5. Visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. In light of the wildfires in LA, the NFL announced there is a contingency plan for the LA Rams playoff game. The plan is to play the Rams-Vikings game Monday night at SoFi Stadium. If there is a need to move the game due to the wildfires, it will be played Monday at State Farm Stadium in Arizona. 3 major blazes burning in the LA metropolitan area Wednesday from the Pacific Coast inland to Pasadena, home of the famed Rose Parade, and of course the Rose Bowl. At least 70,000 people ordered to evacuate, a number that kept changing because evacuation orders were continually being issued. Our thoughts, prayers, and support go out to the LA community. The San Francisco 49ers are motivated to get a long-term extension done with quarterback Brock Purdy. On Wednesday, John Lynch said, "I think we know what Brock is and that he's our guy." Coach Kyle Shanahan echoed Lynch's thoughts, saying, "I've loved these 3 years with Brock. I plan on being with Brock here the whole time I'm here." Lynch and Shanahan spent the past couple of days doing exit meetings and going through player and coaching staff evaluations, which is why any Purdy extension talks have yet to begin in earnest. I don't think you have to read between the lines to understand where this ends up. A lot of money in Brock Purdy's bank accounts. In the NBA, the Thunder and Cavs got together for a matchup of teams with really big winning streaks.
Danny Cunningham here at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse after the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 129-122. Let's talk for 94 feet about the 11th straight victory for the Cavaliers. If I would have told you before the game, Donovan Mitchell is going to go 3 of 16 shooting, you probably would have said, well, OKC is going to win by a wide margin. Instead, the big guys dominated for the Cavs. Evan Mobley had a great night. Jarrett Allen had a great night. Those two combined for 46 points. They were the biggest difference in this game. Oklahoma City did not have an answer. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 31 points for the Thunder. I thought the Cavs did a pretty good job on him. He needed 27 shots to get there. Cavs forced him into 5 turnovers. I know they gave up 122 points, but I thought they took care of business on that end of the floor. Darius Garland, I thought, also made some really big plays down the stretch. He had a scoop layup that finished this one off with under a minute to go, and that was after Evan Mobley went to the rim against Isaiah Hartenstein and put the Cavs up 5 with just over a minute left. So there were some big-time performances for the Cavs from guys not named Donovan Mitchell, and that's the biggest reason why this Cavs team showed on Wednesday night they're a true championship contender.
Penn State and Ohio State have a shot to win their semifinal matchups and make the college football championship a matchup of Big Ten Blue Bloods. How much of a chance is there of that happening? Our Locked On Big Ten hosts discussed that on the recent Big Ten Squad Show.
Seiko, you're taking on Notre Dame, and boy, two teams here that I don't just feel like they want to run the ball. I feel like they have to run the ball or they won't move it on the other team.
Notre Dame has to do that. Notre Dame can't throw football beyond 5 yards. What it seems like Georgia held them to 3.8 yards per attempt. I mean, that's just that's a testament to Georgia's defense still being as competitive. But even with, I mean, Notre Dame is why they are at this point is because of the defense. This is top 5 defense objectively, and they play ball control the time of possession. They have the ground game to just play keep away. But Penn State at least has a balanced attack. Drew Allar's better than Riley Leonard as a passer. They have Tyler Warren. Notre Dame doesn't have another option like that. If either of these teams get into a 2-minute drill at the end of the game, I don't know that Notre Dame can overcome that. Can they put together a drive when time is actually against them? Can they even play from behind? I'm not going to say that they are Boise State. However, to an extent, this is a one-dimensional offense. We have not seen what Notre Dame is like when they are playing from behind. And if Penn State can actually build a 10-point lead or something like that in the fourth quarter, because they're not going to build a 14, 21-point lead like they could against a Boise State or an SMU. But if it's a double-digit lead and Notre Dame's from behind, can Riley Leonard be a drop-back quarterback and will this team to victory? Probably not. So easier said than done, but that's the formula to beating this Notre Dame team, because if Penn State doesn't do it, Ohio State certainly will. And Texas would too. I think Texas would beat Notre Dame as well.
So I agree with you that Penn State's passing game is stronger. What I disagree with is that Notre Dame's offense is one-dimensional. And what I mean is, yes, they're incredibly run-centric and run-driven, but they don't have one way to run the ball.
That's true.
I think they do a great job, and if Drew Aller were more of a runner, I think Andy Kotelnicki would do this a lot, because he did it at Kansas when he was the offense coordinator with with Jalen Daniels, not Jaden Daniels, the quarterback.
Oh, what that offense would be like with
holy smokes!
We'd be talking about
Kotelnicki and Daniels. Boy, I bet you Daniels could win a Heisman Trophy or something. Yeah. So I think for Notre Dame, the health of Jeremiah Love, I think, is more important in this matchup than the health of Abdul Carter for Penn State. Because if you take Love out, I think Notre Dame's backup running back is good, but suddenly you're running Riley Leonard a lot, and you're going to give that Penn State defense more opportunities to get hits on him. And I don't think, he's a big, tough guy. I don't think you're necessarily going to be able to knock him out of the game. Not that they'd be doing that on purpose, of course, but you could just make him less comfortable throwing the ball, because he might be dinged up a little bit after taking some shots running the football.
Let me add to that as well, something that, probably in the Notre Dame circle is going to be discussed a little more. But Cooper Flanagan, second tight end for them. Mitchell Evans is kind of that all-encompassing. If he was healthier, recovered fully from that ACL injury, he'd be that kind of Tyler Warren comparable target. He does have that potential, but he's not 100%. Cooper Flanagan's their kind of their dirty work tight end. He is the blocking tight end. He's the reason why the ground game is so successful. He's out for the season. And then if you flip it over to the other side of the football, Howard Cross is dealing with injuries. Riley Mills is out. Those are arguably their 2 best overall defensive linemen. So these little things that to us, this is a big deal for the Fighting Irish. And these are impact players. So now you add Jeremiah Love. Now you add Cooper Flanagan, who's a big part of that rushing success. Then you add Howard Cross, Riley Mills. And you start to look around, okay, it's Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter's expected to play, but that's 4 impact players for Notre Dame at a not-so-timely game with Penn State, who just has Abdul Carter, probably not at 100%, but he's going to play and still be a pass-rushing specialist. I think here the simple game plan for Penn State is if you shut down Riley Leonard as a runner, you can win this game.
Yeah, let's wrap up with our game picks. You guys want me to go first or last? Feels like as the interim host of today's show. Craig should be back next week.
Well, you're feeling last right now, so it depends what you want to do there, partner.
Even Locked On UCLA feels more bold than you right now.
Yeah.
You are
basketball season.
You are fourth in this pecking order.
All right, I'll go last. Yoxheimer, you first. Who wins? Who covers?
Ooh, this is interesting because I think the Ohio State-Texas game will be pretty high scoring relatively to Notre Dame-Penn State. But I think Penn State wins and Ohio State wins, making it all Big Ten national championship, which means the squad show will go crazy for a couple weeks.
It will go crazy. Seiko?
I'm going to go Penn State, 24-20 over Notre Dame. So that's slightly under that 45 because it's starting to shade down to 45. And I'm going to go Ohio State. I think they win by 2 touchdowns against Texas. So if that requires a lot of points or whatever, I think it's by 2 double digits for Ohio State. Give me something along the lines of 38-27.
I'm going with Notre Dame, though. I'm trusting the it factor with Notre Dame because, Seiko, I hear your points, and I think it's incredibly valid that you make the case that they've got more talent in these areas and whatnot, but Notre Dame's just playing winning football across the board for the last couple of months, and I don't think you can discount that in these do-or-die situations. It doesn't always look the same. I don't think Notre Dame can win a shootout 38-35. I do think there are a lot of ways, though, for the game to look and Notre Dame to come out on top. I kind of feel that way about Penn State. I just like that Notre Dame defense a lot. I think that's the difference. I will take the Irish.
You can stay up to date on the Big Ten by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Big Ten on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, do the Commanders actually have an advantage over the NFC South winning Bucs? I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was going to Brewers Diamondbacks Game 5 in the playoffs a couple of years ago. I guess that's a long time ago now, 10 years ago now. And the energy, the excitement. I'll never forget the sound the crowd made when the Brewers hit the walk-off game winner. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Jaden Daniels spent his rookie season taking the Commanders to the playoffs. Opposing him is a resurgent Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. At least one Locked On NFL host who doesn't talk about the Commanders every day sees Washington as the team who will advance.
Here's the thing for me. What I'm looking at most of the time is head coach, quarterback when it comes to the playoffs. And you heard the conversation that Peter just had, the inefficiencies of quarterback when it comes to Jalen Hurts and the difference that can make. And I think Matt LaFleur is without argument the better coach in that matchup as well. I think Dan Quinn's the better coach in that matchup, and I think Jaden Daniels is the better quarterback. So I can see the Washington Commanders coming out on top of this one.
Landon McCool, I want to let you chime in. James, you will have your turn on Thursday. Landon McCool, I want to let you chime in there. You obviously do not agree with Ross Jackson.
Well, I was going to say I'm the other guy that also has a team that played these two teams in the last few weeks, and I'll tell you that I think that if Cliff hasn't fallen off the cliff, then I don't know what's happening. Like
he was hanging off the cliff, and then Terry McLaurin saved him. Got him back on the.
No, I think the Cowboys wanting that 12th pick saved them is what happened there, and Micah Parsons suddenly getting a hingy knee or something.
I love we lost because we wanted to take. That's really great.
hey, listen, not because we wanted to, but certainly the Commanders certainly needed to win that game more than the Cowboys needed to lose it. And I think both of those sides were working pretty well in the first half and screwing up their chances. But I think that to me, I think Tampa Bay looks like the stronger team right now. I think that's what matters when you're getting into the playoffs is who's
most dangerous,
strong at the most dangerous team going in or at the playoffs. So I think to me, Washington didn't play a good game against us. I mean, certainly weren't in a game that they needed to win to kind of improve their situation. They didn't play good in the first half, and to the point where it almost felt like they were pulling Jaden Daniels just to kind of not screw up anybody's confidence of what's going on. So I think for me, the Bucs are the hotter team going in.
Is he healthy, David? Do we know that?
He's
that would be the thing that I would want to
fine.
know. Like, is he going to?
Yeah,
is
he's
Daniels
perfectly
healthy?
fine. Jaden is fine. The question really is Marshawn Lattimore and Tyler Biadasz that James Jarko and I will talk about.
I got news for you, buddy. The question
Wednesday
will
night,
always be
actually.
Marshawn Lattimore.
Listen. All of your information, all of your logic points to a Buccaneers win, and I look forward to talking to all of you next week after the Washington Commanders prove you wrong.
This is a matchup of how can you not be impressed by teams? How can you not be impressed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin for a month, 6 weeks, and the offense kept on rolling? How can you not be impressed by Jaden Daniels having one of the great rookie quarterback seasons? How can you not be impressed by a Commanders team that on the fly with free agents, a lot of us, including myself, thought were washed, were damaged goods, coming in and not just winning a bunch of games, getting to the postseason and having a real shot at upsetting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Neither of these defenses are particularly good. I trust Todd Bowles. I trust Baker Mayfield. They have the playoff winning experience. But at the same time, I've seen Jaden Daniels take down Joe Burrow, look him in the face and say, I can be better than you. Take down the Philadelphia Eagles, throwing 5 touchdown passes, overcoming 2 interceptions. I want to root for the Commanders. So I'm going to. And finally, Penn State coach James Franklin said Wednesday that the matchup against Notre Dame is about representing our schools and our conferences. Of course, then Franklin remembered that Irish coach Marcus Freeman was sitting next to him, and he backtracked slightly. Or our conference, excuse me. He then clarified what he meant. It should be consistent across college football. This is no knock at Freeman or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. So I guess it's about uniformity. You know, that thing that college football sports are so good at. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will it be the Nittany Lions or the Irish headed to the national championship? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.